and welcome to your Singapore Power Platform user group community. So, and first of all, I just want to give thank you, Hitachi Asia for Meetup sponsorship and definitely support from Microsoft, Dynamic Communities, and D365 Champs. Next, here are few of the UG Dynamics 365 UG link along with that meetup link. Do join the meetup group so that you will get updated what exactly next events are coming up. So if you know, this is all about the Power Platform. So Power Platform related Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, and Power Virtual Agent. Along with that, Power Platform related will keep on updating what is new thing coming up in Microsoft Power Platform space. So let me introduce myself. I am your local user group leader, and this is Goloknath. I have more than 10 years experience in Dynamics 365 as well as RPA. Okay, so let me pass it to Prashant. Prashant.
Thank you. Can you please move on to the next slide? Good morning, everyone. My name is Prashant. I am your global representative for your local user group, Singapore Power Platform. I have 11 years of experience in the business applications industry, specifically in Microsoft Dynamics 365. I'm also an MVP and MCD. You can connect with me at DIYD365 on Twitter or just do .com, and that would be my blog. Thank you. We just wanted to take a moment to ask you or request you to register for Microsoft Ignite. The link is on your screen. The recording will be shared as well, but go to myignite.microsoft.com and you'll be able to register. It's going to be fun. Please register. Next one. With that, I would welcome Vivek Bavishi, who is an MVP. He's based out of the US, and he'll be talking about APIs, a lot of APIs today. So it's an honor to have you here, Vivek. Please take it over, introduce yourself, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Prashant. Hi, everyone. I am Vivek Bavishi. Before I start talking more, let me share my screen. And somebody, if they can confirm.
Yep, we can see.
Okay. So yeah, I'm Vivek Bavishi. I'm based out of Dayton, Ohio, in US. So right now it's 9 p.m. And I am excited to be a part of this, presenting today. So thank you, Prashant and Goloknath, for giving me this opportunity. And also, this is a topic which I'm always excited to talk about. As you can see from my kind of branding that I use, that API guy. API is a topic that is always close to my heart, and I can speak about it as much as I can. So the idea for today's session is to demystify some of the myths around APIs and how it's like not that, anyone can go ahead and start using APIs. And I wanted to kind of go through this journey that I went through and share it with you so that you can also use it for any projects or anything that you're looking for to use APIs in Power Platform. Now, before I start, I'm going to paste a link in the chat, and hopefully this works well. So this is a Slido link. I tried to take some feedback during the session so that it's interactive. So if you can click on that link, I would say there's and take the first question. I'll be playing that. So the first question, which before I start, is in a few words, what would you like to take away from this session today? Like, what are you looking for? Maybe I can try to bring those things in as I go through the session. So if you can take maybe 20-30 seconds to just write down whatever you want to take away from this session today, that would be really helpful. seeing one response, two responses. Nice. Give it maybe 10 more seconds or. Okay. All right. Let me stop that. So you can, and I'll show the results. Well, guess you could. Okay. I'm still trying to learn how this works. But yeah, so the two things that I saw here was this API for citizen devs and integration of non-MS applications. So good kind of questions or thoughts around this, and I'll try to cover those in the session as I go through. All right, so let's jump back. So a bit about me. I'm a business applications MVP. I'm an MVP for 2 years. I recently changed my job. I've worked as a senior consultant at Hitachi Solutions, America. Before that, I was working for a customer organization. So I've never been in the consulting world, but it's because of Power Platform that I'm in this this different type of realm, I would say right now. But so yeah, it's been a journey for me. I don't have a lot of experience in business applications as much as Golaknath and Prashant. So I've been in business applications only for 3 years. And also, this is not all business applications. It was a Power Apps and Power Automate was a part of my role. I don't have any kind of developer background. I have a master's in marketing, background in electrical engineering. So if I can learn APIs, anyone can. So kind of sets the base for one of the questions that was asked. And these are my kind of videos on that API guy. That's my YouTube channel. And my blog is thatapiguy.tech. So you can look out for some more content over there. A lot of stuff around APIs. All right, so agenda for today's session. So we'll first cover an overview of API, what API is and how does it work. Why API? Like, why do you even need to use APIs in your whatever application that you are building? And we'll look at the types of authentication. I'll give a brief, I would say, overview of each type of authentication so that you know when you're looking at any kind of API. And then we'll do a demo of a bunch of solutions or different APIs that I have built an app with. And we'll try to dive deep into one of those, or if time permits, we'll deep dive into more.
Vivek, just a question before you proceed.
Yes.
How would you like to take the questions towards the end or just in the chat window?
I'll take questions as they come up, and I guess if you want to just summarize in between, maybe that would be helpful. But yeah, let's not keep it towards the end of the session. Let's keep it interactive. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So this is a question that I get asked a lot. I'm not a coder. Can I do this? Yes, you can. I'm not a coder, and I did this. There is a bit of a learning curve, I would say, around APIs, but it is something that a citizen developer can easily do. As I told you, I didn't have any developer background, and I was able to do it. So this is an example I really like to explain what an API is. So think about when it was pre-COVID, when you went to a restaurant and you ordered something. So the host or the waiter, they will take your order and they will pass it along to the chef, and then the chef will make it, pass it back to the host, and you'll get the food served. So it looks very simple here, right? But this is what an API is. Instead of thinking about it as eating, think of it this as your application. You send a request. So you send some kind of, I would say, parameters or properties or data inputs. And so think of the API as a layer between the database and like a third-party application, right? So you're not touching the database directly, but you are connecting through an interface before the database, which understands your request and sends back the response to the application. So it's as simple as that. And there's a lot of ways you can do these requests and responses and how to kind of manage them. That's what we'll cover today. But at a very high level, this is what an API represents. You request something to a data service, I would say, and then you get a response back. So let's take a real life example, right? Where is something like this being used? So all of us, again, I know a lot of examples that I have are like pre-COVID, but I'm hoping we haven't forgotten about it yet. So you generally would book flights. I use Google a lot to compare the flight rates. So I put this date into Houston, the dates, and then Google will basically use the APIs of all these airlines. I mean, it will send a request to through their API and ask them, okay, what are the flight options that you have for this specific and origin for these dates? And then it shows you the best options. So this is what Google is kind of tapping into each of the airlines API, passing this information to those APIs and getting kind of consolidating that data and showing it to you. So this is how you also probably would like to use APIs in your application. You want to get data from a bunch of places and bring it together in your application and make like two different types of data sources talk to each other, right? So yeah, this is a good example to understand where APIs are being used in real life. So the why API, like why should I even think about using API? So the first thing, Power Platform doesn't have a connector for everything. So if it's some third part, some kind of service that you want to use and it doesn't have a connector, what would you do? How would you access that data which that service is offering? So Power Platform, I think today has around more than 300 connectors, but still it doesn't cover everything. And even if there is an existing connector, let's say for DocuSign, it probably doesn't have all the actions that you need from the DocuSign. So that's the first thing, and kind of ties into the second point that you need to connect to third-party sources. If you need to connect to third-party sources in your app, you probably want you'll have to use API. And the third point being enriching and integrating data from different sources. So you in some cases you just want to maybe access some public data, which could enhance the data that you have. So it could be some latitude, longitude data or health data, anything like that you could bring into your application and enrich your existing data. So for such kind of things, you would again need to tap into that API for that service. So this again is one of the common questions that I get asked. Doesn't HTTP or custom connector require a premium license? Yes and no. So the good thing is, or let's talk about the bad thing first. The bad thing is, if you are using HTTP action in your flows in Power Automate, or if you're trying to create a custom connector, which you could use either in Power Apps or Power Automate, yes, you need a premium license, like a standalone Power Apps license or a standalone Power Automate license or one of the Dynamics licenses. However, you could, I mean, I'm not going to dive deeper into this topic, but you now with the Dataverse for Teams, you can host an API on Azure API management, and then you can use the connect. You can create a connector from Azure APIM and use it in your apps within Teams or Power Apps within Teams, or even flows within the Teams environments. So that way you kind of have a workaround. I would say it's not exactly a workaround, it's actually a feature that you have with Azure APIM. So you will still pay for Azure APIM, which is it's based on capacity or the consumption rather than a user. So there are ways to use APIs without a premium, a Power Apps premium, or a Power Automate premium license. So there are options, and if somebody has any specific questions around that, I'll be happy to answer. So let's look at the types of authentication. So these are the five, I would say, in my opinion, these are the five top types of authentication. There isn't a lot more than this, but these are the different types of authentications for different types of APIs. So no authentication is basically you don't have to give any kind of, don't need any key or any app registration, nothing like that. You can just use a public API's URL, and even if you just paste that URL into the browser, you'll get a list of results. So NASA is a public API. They allow you to do some things without creating any key. So there are a lot of public APIs which require no authentication. They rate limit you, so you can't do a lot of requests within a certain time frame, but you can access public data without using any API key. Basic authentication is not used a lot these days. It's basically passing username and password as the parameters or the headers to authorize an API call. So it's secure over an HTTPS protocol, but still it's not that secure. So not a lot of APIs offer this anymore. API key is one of the most common ones. So in this case, and we'll cover this later in one of the slides, but in this case, you will generate an API key. So, and then once you have the API key, you can then use that API key to authorize any API call that you're making. OAuth 1.0, it's a bit complex one. So this is one of the APIs that you cannot directly create a custom connector, or even through an HTTP action, you can't access OAuth. You cannot do OAuth 1.0 authentication. You might have to use Azure Functions. So I have a blog post on that. If you need to understand that more, I'll give you the link to it. Yeah, our platform doesn't offer an easy way, I would say, to do OAuth 1.0 authentication. Twitter uses this. So some of the Twitter API or endpoints, if you need to access, you have to use OAuth 1.0. OAuth 2.0 is another common one. So if you need to access data logged in as a user-specific data, then OAuth 2.0 is one of the commonly used standards or authentication types. In this case, you're generating a token, and that token generally stays good for a certain duration of time, and then you have to refresh the token. So the Power Apps custom connectors allows you to generate those tokens and refresh those tokens without you making any kind of, you don't need to do anything. You just need to specify the authorization and and the refresh token authorization URL. So I know there was a lot of technical stuff here, but unfortunately, within an hour, it would be difficult to go through everything. On my blog or on my YouTube channel, you'll see a lot of posts, a lot of content which covers each of these in its own kind of video. So next topic, again, a question that I get asked a lot is, what's JSON or JSON, whatever pronunciation you use? Isn't that code? Well, I have started saying that JSON isn't code. It's just a way to structure, or it's a table with like multiple kind of levels to it, and JSON is just a format to represent a table of data. And each cell within that table can have like a record in itself or a table in itself. So it could be nested tables. But JSON, I would say, is nothing but nested tables, and it uses some curly braces here and there. That's how I would explain. So I wouldn't get scared by using JSON. It's people call it code, but it's not. It's just a way to represent table in a more fancier way. But that's like a standard which all the APIs, I mean, any response that you get from an API will be in JSON or XML. JSON is, I would say, 90%, even more than that. In some cases, it might be an XML response. So before I jump onto the demo, just a quick kind of comparison between HTTP action versus custom. Because a lot of times you'll have to take a decision whether should I use HTTP action or should I use custom connector in my application. And this will be mostly in context of flows, not for Power Apps. It's not, you cannot use HTTP in Power Apps. So HTTP definitely shorter setup time. You just create an HTTP action and specify the get URL, specify some API key, and you get your response, and that's it. You carry on. Whereas custom connector takes some more time to set it up for the first time, but then you are set. You can use that custom connector anytime afterwards for any other use case as well. HTTP is just for that one flow. Custom connector, once you create it, you can use it across apps or flows. HTTP action, as I said, useful for one-time use in a flow. Custom connector, easier to scale and use. You can't do OAuth 2.0 very easily. I wouldn't say you can't do it at all, but you can't do it easily with HTTP actions because generating a token would require you multiple HTTP steps. Whereas in custom connector, you just say it's an OAuth 2.0 type of authentication, and it will automatically do all the things in the backend. So if you are trying to decide between HTTP action and custom connector in your example, in your use case, think about whether you're going to use that service for a lot of other applications as well, then go for custom connector. All right. I guess before I jump on to, or actually, I have one more slide, and after that, we will take some questions if there are any. So this is what I call how to API, because this is how I learned using APIs. So if you are looking to connect to any kind of third-party service, search for the service name, let's say Yelp. So if you want to use Yelp, I don't know if Yelp is that popular in Singapore, Yelp or Zomato, something like that. So just search for the service name followed by API docs. That will most probably take, if they have an API, which they have, if it's an official API, you'll most probably get the first Google search result as the one which you need. So it will take you to the documentation, And from there, you can generally, a lot of these services offer a free developer account. But if it's like some, I don't know, some invoice kind of service, like, I don't know, FreshBooks, what's it? One of those, you might need an account with them to generate a developer account. So a developer account is basically nothing but a way to create a new application, register an application with them. And that gives you, if it has API key or any kind of credentials, it will allow you to generate those. So once you have the developer account, create those API keys or credentials. And if it's a good kind of third-party service, they have they will have some kind of API explorer, so you can test the API without even trying to use it in your application. And then check the reference. The reference section, I mean, you'd be surprised. Every API has like these similar titles across. They'll say all their endpoints that they have will be called reference. So you'll see different types of examples over there. So, and I'll go through one of the APIs as a part of the demo, or after I show you a lot on the demo. But yeah, we'll go through these steps actually for the NASA API. But yeah, this is how you can kind of search for any kind of API that you want to connect to, and these will be the steps more or less that you will take to start using APIs. All right, so let's jump on to the good stuff. So I'm going to try to cover a demo of all of these things. These are the things that I've developed over, I would say, 2 or 3 years. But I'll show you all these, and then I'll cover the NASA and like how I went through developing the whole thing. And if you have the time, we'll cover one more of these. Any questions so far?
No questions yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
No problem. Let me bring in the other screen. Just give me 1 second. Okay. You guys can see my app, right? The image search app. Can somebody confirm? Okay. So so this is so I tried to build a Bing image search app. So you can search for images. I'm gonna search for Tom Jerry, my favorite cartoons. So it will send requests to the Bing image search API, and it will return all these results. And these are all the different kind of inputs that I could give. So let's say if I want to see animated GIF, I'll do a search now. And there you go. You have some nice set of GIFs over here. So yeah, this is basically tapping into the Bing image search API, sending all these inputs to the API, and then getting all the results back from Bing image search API and showing them in this gallery over here. So yeah, I'm gonna go through these demos one by one quickly. And of course, if time permits, we'll try to cover them in one of those in more detail. So actually, so this one was using 2 movie database APIs. So you see here, I just clicked on suggest a movie, and this is actually a good one. Or Train Your Dragon, and it gives me what genre it is, what's the rating on IMDb, and a trailer of it, and everything. So if you don't know what to watch, you you can use this app to generate it for you. So this used a TMDB and OMDB API, and these are the keys. don't use those. But yeah, you can filter it. So let's say I want to see English or actually Korean. Let's do Korean horror. Okay, I haven't seen this one, but yeah, so you can filter it down to any kind of genres. So again, these are the different inputs that you're giving to the API, and it is returning a result, a random one, to show in the app. The NASA one we will cover in more detail later, so I'll leave that for now. And this one is a YouTube data API. So this is almost like a YouTube experience. So I have my list of favorites added in here. So all the stars of Power Apps, I would say, Shane Young, Daniel Christian, Reza. Well, I guess I should add Reza here. This was an old developed app. But yeah, so you can see all their stats here. And then you can see the data in here. So I do see a question how API is working in the backend. I know you probably want to see how this works. So I will cover these. I wanted to show you I would say, the power behind these APIs, how you can use them. And we'll take one of the examples to see how it exactly works. This one is actually Google Vision API. So let me do this. It's actually my photo right now. And oh no, it's comparing me to Mark Zuckerberg. That's not good. But it shows Google's Vision API captures all the different things that it's trying to detect. The percentages, anger likelihood, very unlikely because I was smiling. This one is a Yelp API. So it's Friday, so show me nearby breweries. So I actually put in Singapore's location coordinates. And it shows me all these 8 bars or breweries and this is actually using the new map component of Power App, the mixed reality component. So shows up really nice in the app, so I can see them where they are. All right, so yeah, I went through all these demos pretty quickly just to show you what all you could build. So now let's look into the NASA one. So the NASA APOD is basically astronomy picture of the day. So I can choose a date here. So the NASA releases a picture of the day every day. I click on it and it gives me the image and then the description that goes along with it. So how does this work? So as I told you, when you want to search, you actually started from the beginning. I'll search for NASA APOD API. So it gives me this link. So remember that 5 steps that I showed you, how you go about searching for APIs. So I can just put API or API docs, whichever you want to do. I go to this link, it tells me to generate an API key. So in this case, I just put my first name, last name. Let me just do that quickly. Application URL is optional. Sign up, gives me this API key. So I have this API key that I can use now. And this says you can start using this key to make web service requests. And this one actually will give me some results. So I'll open this in a new tab. So you'll see this is the JSON that I'm talking about, right? So one thing that I use quite a bit is this JSON code verify. So this helps me to look at the JSON much easier. So I can paste that JSON that I got, click on tree viewer, and this is basically the table of, it's giving me all the data that I got behind it. So this is the URL to that picture of the day. This is the title of the picture. This is the HD URL, so it's high resolution. And then this is the explanation, and this is the date. So this is the data that I'm getting back when I make this request. So let's see the flow first, and then we'll see how to use it in the app. So where was this? Okay. So here is my flow. I'm using HTTP action because it's a simple one here. So I'm not using a custom connector. So my trigger is going to be Power Apps because I'm going to trigger this from an app. And when I make, and then I insert an HTTP action. So that, this is a GET request. The different types of requests that you'll have are GET, put, post, patch, and delete. Most of the open APIs will only allow you to do a GET request. So GET request is getting data. You're not asking it to change anything or add a new row into their data or anything like that. So GET is just read, basically. So this is the URL that I'm using here. So I actually use the demo key, which I should have not, but we could even use this URL that it gave us here and put that in. Let's go back. Sorry about that. Okay. And then I'm getting the data. So this is a Power Apps variable, which I'm getting from the app. So this will give me the date so that I can get a different picture for a different day. And then once I have this defined over here in HTTP action, I want to be able to parse this response. Now, this action isn't required as such, but if you need to use the data that you got back from here in the flow for some reason, you can use the parse JSON. But don't worry about this parse JSON. If you want to just return this data back to the Power App, you'll use the response action. And the response action allows you to send the data back that you got from this HTTP request. So I'm sending the body back, and what I mean by the body is the body of, so this, what you get when you make this request, this is the whole body, okay? And I want to send that whole thing back to my Power App, and then I want to be able to edit it. So actually, I think I didn't open the NASA one in edit mode, so I'll have to quickly open the app in edit. And while it does that, let me show you this. So Power Apps, if you just send this body back, it won't understand the data within it, like the properties, like the date, the explanation. It will just think of it as a Boolean value, like a true false, because it won't understand how to make sense out of that data. So Power Apps doesn't understand that structure or this structure of the table automatically. So you have to specify what is this or the JSON schema, which is basically the type of response that you're getting back from that action. So you don't need to generate this or write it on your own. You can click on generate from sample. Here you can insert the same, the body that you got here as one of the sample response. So you can insert that response and click on done. And this will generate the schema which you saw here. So now you'll see, I'm not gonna kind of go through this exact schema generation, but you'll see it specify it's a type as object, the properties, and each property has a type within it. So it needs to understand data is a string, explanation is a string. So in this case, everything is a string. I know it doesn't recognize data as a date, just fine. You can do that in the Power App. So you don't need to specify that here. So now that we have created the flow, let's look at how to use it in the app itself. So in this case, I have a button, which let's do this. So I'm putting it into a collection because it's like a table. And this is the flow that I'm running. So get NASA API from NASA API .run. This is actually the flow name. And actually, instead of showing that, let's just add a new button. We'll say action, power automate, and actually we'll use the same thing here. So well, I have a lot of it here, so it's hard to find. I wish they had a search button here or a search text box. If not, I'll have to copy it from there. So I'll just copy this thing and we'll see how that looks. Okay, so in this case, it just wants the date. So I can just pass this value and let's see. So again, I'm just doing a copy paste here, but just to make you understand what I'm doing, I had to send it as a, I don't know, for some reason it has to be in this format for NASA's API to recognize it. So I'm getting the year from the selected date, the month, and the day, and putting a hyphen. I could have done a text function as well, but yeah, maybe I wasn't thinking through that. And then you want to, just running that flow is not going to do the whole thing. You have to collect that data into something. So I'm collecting that data into a collection, and let's run this now. So I'm going to click on this. It's got the data in here. Let's look at the collection once. So you see the collection is basically one row collection or one record collection. It has all the data from that API. And we'll see the flow run as well. So let's look at this flow run, which ran 24 seconds ago. So this is my Power Apps trigger. This is the date that was passed. HTTP action to make this request to the NASA API with the date that I got from Power Apps. So that's my input. And then this is the output, which is I got back from the NASA's API with all these data explanation, everything. Parse JSON, as I told you, if you need to use these fields in the flow for some reason, you need to use parse JSON. Otherwise, you use a response action and you're sending this data back to Power Apps. So that data is coming back here in the app. And then this, because it's a collection, I am showing it, I'm doing a first. That's the first row of the collection dot media. And I mean, I was just doing, if it wasn't, sometimes NASA returned like a video, so I wasn't able to play that. So in this case, I was just putting a filter. If it's an image, then show the HD URL. And it's grabbing that from the data that was returned. Similarly, the explanation here. So that's all on the NASA's API. And I see one question. Is there any limitation of maximum records returned via API response? That's from Nitin Chandrakant. So depends on the API. The API could limit you on the number of records that it returns. Sometimes the API would give you a page token. So it will give you, let's say, 20 results at the max in one call. But then it will give you a next page token, which will have, like, you can create a new HTTP action in the flow. So let me show that to you. So what it will do is it will give you a next page token, which you can tap in from the first HTTP action, and then use that next page token in another HTTP action, specifying that next page token and getting the next set of results. So you have to do some looping over there in some cases, but it is possible. But yeah, it depends on the API. What is their max number of results? Every API has it differently. Any other questions on the NASA's API or anything around whatever I showed so far? Okay.
Yes, this is Anika. So where is the authentication part we have earlier discussed?
So the authentication is, in this case, is the API key, right? So the API key is your authentication. I was using a demo, but let's say this is my key here. So I can how to use this key in this HTTP action now. So this is an API key authentication. Is this what you were looking for, or I don't think I'll be able to cover each type of authentication, but let's see.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, I think we are already almost around time. So yeah, this is an API key authentication. The other one will be OAuth 2.0. I have a video on that. I can share the link towards the end of the session, and you can have a look at that. Any other questions? Good question, though. Okay. I mean, I know we have like around 7 more minutes, right? So Prashant and Golaknath, should I keep going on, or should we? Is there anything else that you guys need to cover? You need some time towards the end of the session.
So, hi Vivek, how much time actually required more?
I mean, I guess I can end maybe with a few more slides.
Okay.
I don't think we have the time to go through another API here, but
Okay,
yeah,
sure.
maybe 2 more minutes. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Because we have to complete by 11, so that's why.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Thanks.
So yeah, I'll just give links, and what I'll do is I'll be. I mean, I don't know how you'll share this, but I can share this presentation, and you'll have all these links within the presentation, so you can refer to them. So all these have been, I mean, NASA Airport, I have a separate video on it. I have different videos for returning data from flow to Power Apps, the movie recommender, Bing image search. So all that I covered has its own video. So if you are interested in any specific use case, you can look at that. Push bullet API, also connecting Siri as well to trigger flow. I have some videos on that. So have a look at that, how to create custom connectors. All this is covered. As I told you, it's hard to cover everything in 1 hour, but I have content that you can look at. Other APIs which are really good to kind of play around with, or even something that you can use in business use cases. Here are some examples. As I told you, I'll share the presentation so you can have a look at it later. And before I end, I want to just ask one thing in the Slido again. So if you didn't get the link to the Slido, let me paste that again. And I'll ask one more question before we end. So let's bring that in, and let me play this one. Just to understand, how do you plan to use APIs in your next project? Is that something that you think you found useful and you would want to use it in the next project? I know it would be hard to explain it pretty quickly here, but take your time and put it in, and I'll hand it back to Golaknath now. Yeah, happy to take any feedback after the session as well. I can be here for some more time, and also if you need to reach out to me, I'm available through these channels. So thank you again.
Yeah, hi Vivek. Actually, there is one question from SKS. Is there any way in Power Automate to get the bearer token by invoking callback URL and call actual API using the token?
So the bearer token. So I have created, so there are two ways to do it. You can do two HTTP actions. The first HTTP action will be to just get the token, and then the second HTTP action will be to use that token for another action. The only drawback to that is, in some cases, you need to refresh the token after a while. So if you are calling that flow again and again, then probably you don't need to do that. But I would say if bearer token is involved, I would rather use a custom connector. And as I told, I mean, there is a video that I did on that. You can have a look at that. It has an OAuth 2.0 option where you can, if you choose OAuth 2.0, it will automatically generate the tokens for you. You don't have to do anything. I see another question is SAML authentication supported? It's a good question, but to be honest, I'm not aware. If anyone else knows, feel free to jump in and answer that question. But I will try to get back on this one once I have some.
Thank you everyone for joining the session, and thank you Vivek for the awesome demo. And because actually there is some time restriction, that's why we cannot cover all the demo scenarios, but definitely we can, you can share the PPTs and the recording we will upload to the our UG site, and along with that we'll share in meetups also. So you can collect from meetups. Everyone who has joined in this call or who missed to join this call, they can see the recordings as well. So that's all from my end, and thank you Vivek for the awesome session, and we'll hope we'll get in future also, we'll have few more sessions, and thank you everyone who has joined on this session. That's all from
Thanks
my
so much,
end.
Vivek.
Thank you
That was
all.
wonderful.
Thank you. Yep. It was happy to
Thanks.
present.
Thanks everyone for joining. Have a great day.
So Vivek, you can share the slide so that we will upload that in the.
Yeah, let me do that right away. Should I send it to you, Kalakhan?
Yeah, you can send.